Hello everyone and welcome to Autocrat. Episode 10, Roman Emperor, how dangerous can that be? This is a special episode that I'm going to let my co-host present in just a bit. But just as a reminder, you can always follow our channel and vote on the polls we have up everywhere.
We've got a poll up at the minute for when exactly we do our summary episode, so should that be at the end of every century or at the end of every convenient chapter. So vote on that if you have a strong opinion on it, but otherwise let's now get to the main topic of the episode. As we said, this is episode 10, so we've reached the hallowed double digits.
We have.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And to celebrate this fact, we are going to be doing a special episode looking ahead at some of our future topics today. We're going to be looking at the ultimate fate of each of the Roman emperors from Augustus all the way through to Constantine XI. We'll then be comparing how dangerous that job is compared to being, for example, an English king.
Let's place our bets before we start.
Yep.
How dangerous do you think it is?
Well, I know because I've seen the stats, but I'd be interested to know what you think.
Well, from what I've heard you tell me over time is that lots of emperors get killed or assassinated, so I'm guessing it might be a very dangerous job.
Yeah, so what percentage are you going with, roughly?
I'm going to guess over 50 emperors get themselves killed somehow.
Okay, well, we'll see how that prediction plays out, shall we?
I'd like to know what yours was before you start doing your research.
I thought that about half or more would meet it with a sticky end, because from the descriptions you get, you only really remember the horrifying deaths rather than the really peaceful ones.
Alright, let's see how right we were.
Yeah, let's see. Now, we need a few notes on the specifics at this point, because it's all well and good saying we're going to be looking from Augustus to Constantine XI, but what exactly does that mean? Who exactly are we including in this list of Roman emperors? The reason for this question is because this list actually varies depending who you ask. For example, the historian Suetonius starts his 12 Caesars, one of our primary sources, with Julius Caesar, not Augustus. So he doesn't make a distinction between Julius Caesar and the man who we would call the first emperor, Augustus. Similarly, there's a year commonly called the Year of the Five Emperors, at the end of the 2nd century, which actually, if you look at official list, only has 3 emperors.
Oh.
This is because 2 of the 5 individuals, Clodius Albinus and Pescennius Niger, are thought of as claimants to the throne rather than actual rulers. As was first pointed out to me by Wikipedia, but which I found through a handy footnote trail in a different source, the Emperor Julian is sometimes also called Julian III, so actually getting a number and saying that different people are Julian I and II, who aren't normally included in the list. George Finlay, in his book discussing Byzantium between 717 and 1453, lists 6 emperors called John, with his John VI being John VIII in our terminology. And finally, we don't even agree how many emperors called Constantine there actually are. A paper from 2005 says that, if we recognised every individual with that name who held imperial power, whether real or imaginary, we'd end up with Constantine XVIII dying in 1453 rather than Constantine XI as we call him. So you can see there's a little bit of variety on who exactly is in this list.
Yeah. But who's in your list then?
So for my list, I am discussing anyone who is on the Wikipedia with an unambiguous entry of "this is a Roman emperor." Okay. So it's a bit arbitrary, but we need some sort of standard to actually keep us on the straight and narrow.
So how many do we have?
Well, this list leaves us with 159 individuals who can be considered, running all the way from Augustus to Constantine XI.
Okay, so that's the people. But what about the categories? What categories do we have?
So, the categories themselves, these are how the emperor met their end. First off, we've got natural causes, whether this is explicitly stated in the text, or if I couldn't find anything to suggest they didn't die naturally. I will say at this point, I haven't looked through every single source which could have talked about an emperor's death, because that would take forever, and we're going to get to that in due course. But there are some, such as, for example, Isaac II, where there's a little bit of ambiguity. So over time, we may end up correcting this list, and how we think they died anyway. When it comes to natural causes, I know that absence of evidence isn't necessarily evidence of absence, so the fact that a text doesn't mention something doesn't explicitly mean they did die naturally, but we're not being fully scientific here, this is just a quick introduction. Secondly, we've got dying in battle. So I've added that as a separate category because it is a different cause, because there is the third category here, which it differs from, just being killed. This could be being killed off by your own troops, being assassinated, etc.
Being betrayed and killed.
Yep. The fourth category is suicide, which can include assisted suicide, enforced suicide, so where the ruler is told that the only option they have is to kill themselves or otherwise. Finally, we've got an emperor being deposed.
Remind us what being deposed means?
Deposed means that the emperor has been ejected from power or has voluntarily abdicated in this case. Deposed just means forced off, whereas abdication is taking voluntary leave of the post. But what I've done for these purposes is put everyone who has somehow outlived the position in the deposed category, and then not considered how they died from there on. So just that's where their story stops in my mind, for these purposes anyway. So, as we said, there are 159 individuals who are being considered, and 71 of them died from natural causes, which is 44.7% when rounded to one decimal place.
That's not bad.
No, it seems a lot higher than I would have thought initially when you think about all the salacious stories that stick in people's minds. Yeah. 52 of them, or 32.7%, were killed in some fashion. This comprises 39 who were killed, so for example assassinated or killed by their troops, 9 who died in battle, and 4 who committed suicide in some fashion. Finally, we've got deposition or abdication. 36 emperors, or 22.6% of them, suffered this fate.
Can you give us one example for each?
For each of them?
At least.
Yeah, this will be from memory because I did all the footwork, as you might say, off screen. So dying from natural causes is Augustus, who I think lived to the age of 75 and was the first emperor who reigned for about 40 years, I think, in total. Very successful. Suicide, Quintillus, again from memory. Quintillus is someone who is there for about 5 seconds, I think, during the crisis of the 3rd century. Died in battle. The example that springs to mind immediately is Gordian II, again during the crisis of the 3rd century.
Alright.
Being killed by their own troops, that's so many of them, but for example Severus Alexander in the early to mid 3rd century.
Caligula.
Yep, Caligula as well, very famous example. And then deposition or abdication. Let me think, who have we even got for that? I think you primarily start seeing that later on, but John VI would be an example.
Alright. Well, we're not going to go too much in specific because that's going to be for many, many more episodes. So, yeah. Are you surprised by the numbers, listeners?
I definitely was. How about you?
I am. I would have thought more were just killed because we hear a lot of horror stories or how, Caligula was assassinated or anything. We just don't hear about the one who just, died.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the stories of individual emperors in due course, as we said, and I'm sure it'll be a very fun journey.
Yeah, can't wait.
Me neither. However, we probably will have some more episodes like this in the future looking at tangential topics, stuff like how old emperors were when they died, how old they were when they married, how often they married, how many kids they had, etc. So let us know at our email address if this is something you'd be interested in. Anyway, back to our story for this episode because we've got some comparisons we can make.
Yep.
Namely, how dangerous is the job of Roman emperor when compared to that of other monarchies?
Oh, which monarchy are we comparing to?
Well, to answer this, we're first going to look at England. From Alfred the Great until Elizabeth II, there are 59 monarchs to consider.
Which is nearly 100 less than the Roman emperors.
Yeah, it is incredible when you see the stats, but then again the Roman Empire did last longer.
Yeah.
I think.
Did it?
Hang on, let me think. From Augustus to Constantine XI, we've got just under 1500 years, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alfred the Great starts reigning in 871, I think, so it's about 1100 years. So yes, it is more stable.
Nice.
These monarchs spanned kings of Wessex, kings of England, Great Britain, and the United Kingdom, so we've got the state changing over time, but the monarchy stays the same. Of these 59, 44 of them died of natural causes, most recently Elizabeth II in late 2022. 5 were killed, and in this category I've included Edmund Ironside, also called Edmund II. There's a bit of a debate about his cause of death. From memory, I didn't write this down. Some say that he died naturally, others say that he might have died by being shot by, I think it's a crossbow, while he was on the loo.
Okay,
so
interesting.
I've put him in that category, but you could probably, like with the Romans, move people between categories a bit depending on who you're listening to. 7 monarchs were deposed, 3 died in battle, and 0 committed suicide. This means that 74.6% of English and British monarchs since Alfred the Great died of natural causes, meaning the Roman job is much more risky, as you can see.
It is, but it's a different time as well.
Different time and also different inheritance rules, which I assume make things more complicated.
Yeah.
Let's now compare with the French monarchy, running from Pepin, the father of Charlemagne, until Napoleon III. In this list, there are 57 monarchs, and 43 of them died of natural causes. This is 75.4%, making it comparable to England, and again, much safer as a job than being Roman Emperor.
And also much safer than being English monarch.
Yeah.
Well, not much safer, but a little bit.
Yeah, slightly, about 1%.
Go French.
Completely unbiased opinion here, listeners. So, in this French monarch list, 2 were killed, 11 were deposed or abdicated, and 1 died in battle, namely Robert I. As a final comparison, there's a paper which, in its abstract, lists the chance of surviving getting struck by lightning as between 70 and 90%. This means that your chances of survival are better when being struck by lightning on average than being any of these monarchs.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, in the end, do you think being Roman Emperor is a dangerous job? Would you take it?
I would say on average probably not worth it. There are some like Augustus who are very good at it and have very successful reigns, but on average you're probably going to end up meeting a sticky end.
Right.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoyed, and please let us know if there are any other topics like this which you'd like to see covered in future.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week and have a good New Year's.
Yeah, Happy New Year when this comes out. So, what did you think? Were you expecting this?
Not really. A little bit, because you do the researches, but still.
Yeah.
Not really before you started doing the researches.
No. It's amazing how much safer, for example, being the King of England or a King